Welcome to this journey where we dialogue with thought and heart leaders to share their reflections on human condition and how to improve them.
So, Anirban, the chapter 1 of your book, as per the plan, it's titled as Philosophical Transformation Essential to Reverse Engineer Consciousness. Can you throw a little light on what exactly does this mean?
Yeah, so basically what I wanted to say is that, that the biggest problem of the 21st century is that we have to build a machine that is human-like. And human-like means self-aware machines. If a machine is self-aware, is it a machine anymore? That we debated enough for the last 100 years and then maybe more, because it was the era of machines, and then robots are now taking shape so that they can do many things by themselves. So at this point of time, I felt that from the very beginning of the book, without talking garbage or nonsense about, this may be an abstract, philosophical, some arguments, reverse engineer consciousness straight. I want to make a machine that is conscious, self-aware.
Yeah. Here, Anirban, the curiosity is that when I listen to different thinkers, and even in our ancient text, the word consciousness per se seems to be still not settled. There's not even a working definition of the word consciousness.
Yes.
So I'm sure you acknowledge that as a fact that while you're attempting it, you acknowledge the fact that the definitions are not settled, and what we are alluding to is also not settled yet.
I totally agree with you. You are very right. If we look at the scholarly literatures, reviews, and critiques of many different kind of theories of consciousness, then definitely there is no conscience in it. For that reason, in this book, we have defined consciousness the way we want to realize it from the very outset, because this book is not about giving you some mysticism of just like quantum businessman does. They create lots of mysticism to generate an aura around some particular theories, like multiverses, many universes. Are they inside you? To me, they are just religious preachers running their business in the name of science. So what we have done is we have clearly outlined what consciousness means. In the entire book, in all the 10 chapters, consciousness means an entity, say this is A, will have, the hardware should be built such a way, such that it will have 3 simultaneous independent information structures. That means 3 souls, you can say. One that interacts with the environment, other that operates its hidden architectures, and the third that can monitor both of them. So what happens is, at a time, 3 of the information structures can simultaneously, independently evolve, learn, model systems, and change the hardware. So from the same hardware, how can you create 3 distinct information structures? So I say that consciousness comes when I'm talking to you. There is another Anirban inside who is monitoring thousands of different thought process that are evolving in my mind due to my biological structures, biological constraints. There is another Anirban who is simulating the future, and then with proprioception, it's analyzing the environment, and then where am I, who am I, my identity, and many, many, many things that are all around. So three Anirbans I have to create. That's consciousness. That may not be the complete definition of consciousness. That may be very restricted and limited view of consciousness, but that is what we want to achieve when we say artificial brain. So maybe there could be further advancement from this particular point for this particular level, and there should be many, many things. But at this point, what we should try to do is honestly trying to realize this particular goal, which would allow, because if I have a material, it has only one property. If I have a pain, it would have only one resonance frequency, one. How to do three? Yeah.
There's a curiosity in what you said, Anirban. One, I heard a little bit of Freud in what you said, because Freud had the three-dimensional architecture in the way he described the world, which is the id, ego, and superego. One, taking care of the inner desires and the inner conflicts. The other conflicting with the societal norms, values, and incentives and rules. And then there is something presiding, trying to negotiate the two. So one, I heard you Freudian, and then I heard another way where I remember one of the evolutionary psychologists, Leda, Cosmides, and John Tooby, and they talk about the modular theory of the mind, where they talk about mind as having different modular structures, some of which are domain specific, and they process information in a certain way, and there are some generalistic modules, and both of these work together in order to do the information processing. So does your theory align with these, or do you see a similarity there?
I have come from a very different direction, but I totally agree with you that philosophers and thinkers, they always reach to a point where scientists may have worked for years to reach, and then to position themselves at a particular point. My perception that there should be three Anirbans from a single Anirban hardware, it arises from the fact that when we were building the model of the human brain, and we were, Pushpendra Singh, one of my students, was actually working on developing the complete time crystal model of the human brain. So basically, the book is actually PhD thesis of two of my students primarily. One is Komal Saxena, and another is Pushpendra Singh. So entire brain part is done by Pushpendra Singh, and several key technologies are built by Komal Saxena and Pushpendra Singh together themselves. So in the book, in the foreword, I have talked that this book is actually the combination of PhD thesis of two students. So primarily, I mean, though I am the single author, but in the consequent books which would follow up and expand, and they will do it. So when they were building the models, and then when they were looking at the data, I used to look at the data very carefully. So they are students, they just think that somehow they want to finish their task. But sitting at the back, when I was looking at the data, then I could feel that, number 12 is coming everywhere for consciousness. 12, 24, 36, and all these kind of numbers, multiple of 12. 12. And if you take in the linear process, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 choices, when you reach 12, you can have choices by which you can create a triplet, a geometric shape, that is 2 into 2 into 3, 2 into 3 into 2, 3 into 2 into 2. So 12 choices are given to you. You can create a topology, a higher dimension, which is beyond this basic primitive machine level choices. So this is extremely simple explanation. So we were searching for the brain components. We found 12 important key brain components, and everywhere these kind of things were coming up. And
how would this tie back to the consciousness bit of it, Anirban? How would this tie in the sense? What I wanted to get at is, you mentioned that for your theory of consciousness, you need 3 information processing modules, and how would this tie into these 3 the number 3, or rather, from 12, how do you get to 3?
12 by 2, I get to 3 is that 12 different components of the brain, they are working together. Whole skin nerve system, motor nerve network, microtubule, neuron, hippocampus, entire cortex layer of the brain, connectome. So all these have a complex set of symmetries and then complex architectures. And they are also made of 12 distinct architectures. So they can also have 3 independent information structures by themselves. So Anirban has 3 Anirbans, but that's not the case when we go to microtubule or a neuron. One neuron can have 3 independent states because of the 12 different choices it can make. So whenever universe gives you independent symmetries, that you can have 12 independent symmetries in you, you can dance in 12 ways. Are you then
saying, Anirban, that at whatever scale we go, up or down, at any scale, if we point out, there is this unique thing which appears, which is that inside of that thing there would be something happening inside, something happening in the environment of it, and then something needs to take care of and preside over what to do with both of them. Absolutely. Are you saying that?
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is that the triplet, 3 independent states. So when we have to build this conscious machine, we have to construct layered structures, something big, Anirban, inside that Anirban's hippocampus, inside that the cortex layer kind of structures that is folding, and then inside that cortical columns like systems of bundles of neurons, and inside that neurons, inside that microtubules, inside that tubulin proteins, and something, inside the secondary structures of tubulin proteins. So all these kind of things, when you go top to bottom to the innermost architectures, everywhere we find that this 12 set of, for example, you go to tubulin protein, you can find 3443. It's a composition of 12, 3 or 4 number of spirals, very, very small atomic scale. You will find 4 springs, 3 springs, 4 springs, 3 springs. So 12 are coupling and vibrating with each other. So what happens is that when you have 12 elementary oscillators or rings, what happens is 3 of them can come together, and then 2 of them, and they can make a group. And then 2, you take 2, inside go you 3, find 3 oscillators, and inside go 2 oscillators. So 3 different way you can compose the vibrations or music or rhythms. So same hardware can have 3 distinct compositions of solutions at a time. So this is kind of a key thing. So the device in the chapter 8, we have, actually there are 3 key things of the consciousness. The first key thing is that we take all the information in terms of geometric shapes. So geometrodynamics that came long back in 1919, after Einstein's beautiful work, many people got inspired by it, that left hand side you have area, right hand side you have mass. So it is called the most beautiful equations of the equation of the universe. Now many people got inspired and tried to say that, look, this is not at one level, every. Yeah. So what Einstein said was that the Einstein's field equation is one of the most beautiful philosophical argument in science. So left hand side you have area, and right hand side you have mass. So how could area be equated to mass? It's the most beautiful thing that you can ever think of. But that actually created a spark of thoughts. Many people tried. For an example, 1919, geometrical dynamics came, and John Archibald Wheeler. I have said actually a couple of persons who have inspired me hugely. And then my 15 years research that is documented in this Nanobrain book. One of the key person is the geometrical dynamics creator of geometrical dynamics, Wheeler, John Archibald. Actually, he came up that with the idea that every single information in the universe are geometric shapes. And then Time Crystal, 1977, by Arthur Winfree. He said that, look, it should be clock inside a clock-based architecture. Then Pancharatnam, from a 23-year-old Indian kid who created geometric phase, the concept of geometric phase. And then JF9 in 1984, from Cambridge University, he proposed that from light you can take out electric part and magnetic part and make vortex, artificial atoms, which does not exist in reality, and you can do a lot of things. And then, of course, Leon Chua, who proposed in 1974 that there should be a fourth circuit element, a unique circuit element, which people have been trying to find, but they have not found it. So these are the kind of couple of people who inspired in the construction of the whole book. So when we say 12, and then we say choices, our devices are like spirals. It's a springs of you find it spirals in the galaxies, inside the protein, inside the microtubule, everywhere. Spiral structures it takes. Yeah, please.
I want us to way back into the chapter 1 part of it where I think what you're right now touching upon is how do we differ from the existing worldview? So,
yeah.
So can you expand on that a little bit in the sense?
This so basically 3000 BC. So two chain of events happen in the history of universe of the world in the last 5,000 or 6,000 years. Two civilizations started in parallel. One started in the Sumer, and one started in India. So one that started in India was Viratapurusha. So it considered that the whole universe is alive. It's called Viratapurusha, and that is alive, living life form. And you go inside and inside and inside and inside. It's a life inside 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 a life. It's an infinite chain of life. So everything living together. And then they came up with a concept of Brahman, because Brahman means, you create the life form, but imagine I am a life form, and then all the cells are in organ and components are inside me. Inside that, there's some other component and some other component. You can go up to molecular scale, but some communication or information processing is happening in all the structures. So Hindus living in India came up with Brahman, a kind of vibration of rhythms, and then they composed a set of notes or tunes, the classical music, as the language of living life form. So, as you can understand, there cannot be God outside or something like that. So that was one concept: life inside life inside life inside life. But in the Sumer, there was another life form. Another concept came up, and that was, I am alive. Rest, everything is dead. So A and B, they struggle. A disappear, B wins. So it's just like every single entity in the universe are isolated. It's very difficult to find them together, and one should die and another will come up. It's not a living life form. It's a whole thing. It's life inside a life inside. No. Just isolated, discrete. Some of them would win. Some of them would get defeated, and then this is how the whole entire thing would build up. And that went to Greek, and then from Greek, the Sparta, rule of Sparta. They used to kill the babies, those who were weak. So this never happened in our civilization. Then when Darwinism came and social Darwinism came, Darwinism is also about that struggle for existence. Struggle. It never came in India. It was. It's completely against the view of Viratapurusha.
Yeah.
And then social Darwinism came, where even until 1960s in the United States, many of the kids were killed on the operation table if they were deformed. And then Marxists tried to implement it, and then Hitler tried to implement it. And then it had implications. But now, even if you look at the Nature of Science papers on proteins and something, it has embedded this particular faith, has embedded so much inside that we destroy one and create another one. So one of the biggest perception of this philosophy is that every single event that are happening in the universe happen one after another, sequentially. So if you look at Indian view or the Hindu view of the universe, where you say we call it Brahmic View or Brahmic View of the universe, is that life inside life inside life inside life. So nobody fights with, even if you fight, it's a cooperation. That's the only truth. Fighting is not the truth. It's cooperation. You cooperate, you better, you disappear, another one takes up. So something like this happens because you serve a purpose for the higher life. But there, you win, you lose. You are better means you come with a better thing, and then you deserve to live. Other one deserve not to exist. So that is Abrahamic thought, came from Abraham, or that this is antithesis of, both are antithesis to each other. So the current science that you are seeing is Abrahamic.
Yeah.
Here you see Turing tape, Darwinism, and all these things are there. So we try to look into this book a very scientific way. Can we formulate or revisit the kind of scientific dogma that was there in India, ancient India?
Yeah. So what I hear you say, Anirban, is one is you talk, what I heard mostly in what you just said was what is the expanse of life? Where does it exist? And and when you say on one school of thought is life inside life inside life inside life is an infinite life, and the other speaks about just the life, and then there is the non-life aspects also.
Yeah.
So that is one distinction that I clearly see. The other distinction I heard you say was there is this idea of survival of the fittest, or destroying of something for the living of something, and that's seen from one in one school of thought, that is seen as a natural evolution of life, or maybe another life kind of thing. And another, it is seen as a competitive spirit, or the survival of the fittest spirit.
Yeah, both say the same thing. Both say evolution. Nobody is against evolution. Like, this is not about both the things are not about science and non-science. Like, both of them are scientific. Both of them don't believe in God. God is different. God is not coming here. So one is saying that kill other, you are the better one, so you'll be chosen by nature. Nature will choose you and then make you better. And then other is saying there is no point in choosing nature. You have come means you are for the purpose of the higher life form. You are srnvantu vishwe amritasya putra. They said. So every single being that is created in this universe, that comes, that survives that way, they have a purpose. They are with their purpose, and they are doing something great. And there is no point in trying to be better than him, because he has a distinct different purpose. That's why they got created in the universe. So honor his thing, otherwise you don't exist.
What I also then see is there is a direct conflict in the Abrahamic, if I were to accept that as the framing of the popular science today, then the way the artificial intelligence is being built today is to see everything as a means to some end, and things as materials, and even to the extent of people's desires and stuff to be reduced to utilitarian functions.
Yes.
How does this change in this worldview, where it's not the means to an end. You respect all forms of existence, and you extend the expanse of life up and down the scale. And then how would an artificial brain function in this kind of a setup? What would be different in this?
Yeah. So in case of Abrahamic science, what we need to do is very nicely formulated by Wheeler, again, John Archibald Wheeler. He wrote a beautiful paper called "It from Bit."
Okay.
So it's it from bit. It's beautiful philosophy. They say that in the current science, what we do is we observe what is happening, and after observing, I have my own perception. I look at the universe in my way. I do my experiment. I create a model to fit my observation and result. But how does it become a scientific theory? I popularize it, my own way of doing it. And then other people also start doing it. Why they would start doing it? Because they can ask a different question and they will get a different answer from the nature. But they do it because they like me. So it's a political transformation of one person's observation. And then many people do it. And then they say, that, look, it's a nice thing. And they also get popularized, just the way yoga got popularized. Maybe one monk many thousands years back, they were doing hand, leg, something like that on something. And then other people found, okay, it works, and then it works. And then it became. But that's not a universal way of looking at nature or the body. There could be other kind of medical sciences also, like allopathic now we have, and then we have naturopathic, we have touch, and then many alternative things came up. Similarly, for one scientific observation, you can have many different kind of theories where observation of a particular person is supreme. So that's why what happens is for artificial brain, we need list of instructions in a written code what that machine would follow. So we have to make it dead. So I give instructions, then it turns alive or lifelike. On the other hand, in the Brahmic science, it's good, that this Brahmic and Abrahamic definition comes up, because it's very easy then to discuss and then analyze the whole thing. Now, let's come to the Brahmic one, where life inside life, this kind of chain exists. Then you need to discover the mathematical symmetry or chain, because whatever you want to make, the artificial one should follow the vibrations. And then Brahman-like vibrations or kind of vibrations should go through from top to the bottom and bottom to the top. And it should synchronize with nature. And then it becomes an artificial brain. But the construction engineering for both of them are very different. Here, you will not have any instructions. You will have only the...
So just to complete and end the point one, the 1.1 part of it, where you're talking about how do we differ from the existing worldview in your book, I think one of the fundamental things that you're also saying is you believe that up and down the scale there are only vibrations. Are you saying that?
Yeah. Or phase, or the geometric phase, or infinite loop of phase. Pancharatnam idea extended, universalized. So Pancharatnam said that if you want to start from rotating from a point and you come back to a particular point, you never reach to the starting point again. So you create a spiral. So we just extended the Pancharatnam's idea. By the way, Pancharatnam is from Cultivation of Science, where I did my PhD. So he was the first one to basically give the fundamental concept behind quantum. In quantum, you talk about phase, and if you don't talk about phase or phase evolution, it's very difficult to do it. So anyway, so these spirals, and then they rotate again, and then form another spiral, and that spiral goes again, forms another one. So this kind of phase loop, infinite network of phase loop that we generalize or universalize. So that's a view.
Yeah. The second part of your chapter 1 talks about the 10 research fields that you cover here in the book. Can you just highlight some of them?
Yeah. So basically, it goes to the 2006, 2007 when I first proposed in NIMS that I would like to build the artificial brain. Then that time the President Teoro Kishishan, he told me that this is very, very difficult. You might ruin your life. I mean, if you try to do this, it's very, very difficult. Why don't you try some simple goal? It would be easier for you. But he said that if you can remain with it, your life may get destroyed, but one day you will be able to do something great. So Vice President was sitting beside him. Then he said, actually, I can foresee that you need 12 to 14 different kind of breakthroughs, and you have to create new research fields. Otherwise, you can never realize artificial brain. Are you willing to get into that journey? I said, sure, sir, I will try my best to do it. And that was 2006, and after 14 years, and he said then, after 15 to 20 years, your start will get a visibility. We will start seeing some output in your results. But if you can do it, that will be great, because then we can say from NIMS, one new kind of research has been born. It was conceptualized here, it was explored here and there. So now I look back and I see that it was not 14, it was 9. There are basically 9 chapters here in this book, which covers 9 or 10 different research fields. The first is linguistic language, the geometric language that we have created. So we call it geometric musical language. That is chapter 2. Chapter 3 is the pattern of primes. If you are given random number of choices, and if you are a very stupid guy, only know counting and then how to group them. And if you go on putting all of them together, say a stupid monkey is given infinite number of balls. He takes 1 ball, 2 balls, 3 balls, 4 balls, or choices of events, random events. He can organize all possible events, and he can actually write the way universe is constructed. So how can you do that? How can you do with the primes, with all these things? Chapter 3, we come up, chapter 4.
3, yeah, this is chapter 4.
Yeah. Chapter 3 is pattern of primes. Chapter 4, we have included 2 different fields. One is doing mathematics, because we are saying that universe is life inside life inside a life. So there will be clock inside a clock inside a clock inside a clock. This clock architecture is the unit of information that we describe in geometric language. But if you do that, then you have to do all kinds of basic mathematics that has been discovered by just drawing circles. Can you do that? And then you have to come up with material inside a material, inside a material, inside a material, inside a material. Then you need to go imaginary worlds, at least 12 imaginary worlds, one inside. So for 200 years, people have built 8 dimensions, 4 dimensions. And then when they try to build string theory, they took 4 dimension plus 8 dimension, 12 dimension. They put a wrap factor between the two and then couple that together to explain string theory. They didn't bother to create higher dimensions. When I went to the mathematicians and asked them, can you help me to construct this kind of algebra where dodecanions will be there? Well, yeah, you are mad. For 200 years, people built quaternions and octonions, and then going to the 12 dimensions.
So what's the quaternion and octanion, Anirban?
Quaternion is a beautiful story. Hamilton, from Scotland or Ireland, he wanted to divide 1 into many parts. So he was very upset. Whole life he was doing that, and his son used to ask, "Father, did you solve it? Father, did you solve it?" And then eventually he solved it. Can you divide 1 by different parts so that product of those numbers is 1? Just like 2 into 3 into 5 is 30. So 30 could be 2, 3, and 5. Similarly, 1 could be what? So I, J, K. So he discovered I into J into K is equal to 1. But how can we write it? So they put a 3 by 3, actually 4 by 4, a tensor, a matrix, 16 elements together to explain how elementary numbers could multiply and create 1. It's all about 1. It's a very interesting question that you have said. Many people ask me, how many bits of information your brain processes? I say 1. Because it's all about dividing 1 into many topologies. So it is never more than 1. So if you count bits, because it goes to in the singularity, singularity. So this kind of new mathematics, new algebra of dodecanians, 17 to 17 dimension, 20 to 20 dimension tensors, and then you have to analyze those things, how the multiplication table will work. This algebra is in chapter 4. So this is a new field. I had to create this kind of mathematics. And if you have this kind of mathematics, and if you have a wave function inside that, another wave function inside that, another wave function inside that, another wave function, so if you believe in this world, then quantum mechanics is not good enough. So quantum mechanics we represent in terms of clocks, and then we see that there are some places where we need to deviate a little bit from the quantum mechanics a bit. We need to change, we need to add new results. So that is a new mechanics, fractal mechanics. So that is number 4 field. So first field is geometric language, second is pattern of primes, we call it phase prime metric. Third is a new kind of algebra, we call it dodecanian algebra. Then fourth is new kind of mechanics, we call it fractal mechanics. Then fifth is the brain time crystal model of the whole brain. So we took every single element of the brain, we modeled it, we did theoretical simulation, and then we create the whole brain architecture. That one is the 5th field. Then the 6th field is a new kind of synthesis, we call it. So we call it fractal condensation. So normally condensation means, Bose-Einstein condensation, many kind of ones. When two different materials vibrating together, they come and collapse and start vibrating in the same phase and just like a single particle. Now imagine different imaginary world, different things, elements are there. First layer, second layer, third layer. And every layer they are condensing together with a new topology. So that's the beauty of fractal condensation. So we came up in the chapter 9, but it's the 6th different research field that we created. Then what would be the elementary device of the brain? Then we came up with the 4th circuit element, we call it inductor. So it's a spiral structure, 3 layers, 3 springs one top of another. If you put the light, monochromatic laser light, you will see optical vortex or magnetic vortex, and we can control charge and magnetic flux or charge and artificial atoms. That is chapter 8 and field number 7. So after that we came up with we call it in the material sciences actually the jelly, we call it brain jelly, and then we create humanoid avatar, that the kind of layer architectures, and then that is also chapter 9, where we create the humanoid avatar, the whole device, and then with optical version of it. So that is another research field that we have created. And then we also created new kind of thermodynamics, because earlier you had one symmetry. Now many different symmetries pour in, and then the number system comes in. So how your laws of thermodynamics actually becomes a complex geometric architecture. So that is also there. And then with the symmetry of this thing, how can you expand your consciousness to higher generalized view of consciousness? So that is also another chapter. So chapter 10 is actually can you predict all the aliens that could form anywhere? What kind of different life forms would be? What kind of different consciousness would be? Can we go to the higher consciousness? If we go to the higher level of consciousness, do we become zombie, or what happens? Is it quantized? What is the evolution of consciousness? So could be there. So that's actually
different research fields that you formulated for this and
yes.
in the journey.